5 sins of the tongue that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us instruction how to avoid, to preserve our well-being in the hereafter, and so that we aren't destroyed in the hereafter by a word that we say.
Al-Maghrib Institute presents Q&A with Farhan Abdul Azeez.
The Prophet said in a hadith that a slave of Allah may say one word, لا يلقي لها بال. He doesn't even give it any, like a second thought. But he says, because of it, his rank in Allah subhanahu is raised levels and levels and levels. And he may say a word, لا يلقي لها بال. He doesn't give it any thought. But because of that one word he said, he will be thrown into the hellfire. Right? So it's a serious thing. So what does the surah tell us? The first sin, major sin of the tongue that it talks to us about is spreading false news. Right? This culture that we live in nowadays of gossip and slander, and if someone were to say something about someone else or a community or whatever that's not true, that can cause a lot of harm, whether to the individual or to the society as a whole. So Allah specifically mentions this as a major sin, somebody who goes around and spreads false news. The second major sin is that of mockery. And this is often done to impress others, to put someone else down, to make yourself feel good. If you feel insecure, it comes from a place of arrogance. And the Prophet said in a hadith that no one will enter paradise even with an atom's worth of arrogance in their heart. So mockery, it's a big deal, and it's something that's become very common, especially to make people laugh in social gatherings. The Prophet has absolutely forbidden it. Allah has absolutely forbidden it in this surah. The third thing that also it's coupled with mockery is to insult one another. And this is often more done in a scenario where it's maybe one-on-one, or a position of, you get emotional and so you respond with a insult to someone. We're responsible for ourselves in all our states. Being very careful of the tongue, not to insult someone. Because maybe that person is better in the eyes of Allah than you. And maybe you're exposed to a sin that he did, or something that he, angered you with, or she angered you with, that perhaps you have other things that are more worthy of being blamed. And then again, the next one, similar to this, is not to call one another by bad nicknames. In fact, Allah says in the ayah, about insulting and bad nicknames, وَلَا تَلْمِزُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Don't, really to translate it as, don't insult yourselves. Not so when you're insulting someone else, but really what's being said is you're insulting yourself. So insulting and then bad nicknames, identifying someone by something that they don't like and constantly calling that name, it messes with their self-esteem and can really affect them. That's a major sin that Allah has forbidden. And the last thing in the surah that is outlined is not to backbite. And it's given an example that Allah says, would one of you love, not just like, would you love to eat the flesh of your dead brother? So eating the flesh of your brother, but when he's dead, and loving to do so. Just imagine how many levels of hatred that there are for something to do something like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equates backbiting with that. Right? That's how detested it is in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So 5 major sins: spreading fake news, mockery, insulting, bad nicknames, and backbiting. We'll be covering this and the whole idea of how a society can function together in a harmonious way, and how we as an individual can build our faith and our character through the lens of Surah Hujurat. I hope to see you at the upcoming class, Faith and Honor.